a history of sexuality. We need to take a look at sexuality, for starters, outside of Israel. Now, we need to remember this is very difficult to do, because how do you give a historical accounting of this? It's pretty tough. We've got not a ton of information, but enough that we could basically say there's history inside of Israel and there's history outside of Israel. What made the difference? Well, frankly, the Bible. The Bible is the book that came along and said, no, I'm going to define for you what is correct sexuality. Everybody else was living radically different. So what was sexuality like outside of Israel? Well, there was gender irrelevance. In other words, it doesn't matter what you are, as long as I can gain pleasure from you. I don't care if you are a woman or a goat or a shoe. The difference seemed to be outside of Israel, the active and the passive role. You can figure this one out, Mom and Dad. The one that was active and the other one was passive. That was really the only distinction outside of Israel. It was Judaism that came along and said, no, that's not what defines intimacy. It is marriage, and that was radical. Furthermore, outside of Israel, there was casual sex, there was temple sex. There was, well, basically sex going on everywhere. But it was the Bible then that came along and said, no, this is where sex should happen, inside of a marriage. And if you will, it was Judaism, the Bible, that invented homosexuality. That's right, they invented They invented homosexuality. Not that they said, hey, here's an idea, why don't you try two boys? No, it was saying that act between two men is wrong. This act between a man and a woman inside of a covenant relationship is right. It was Judaism that actually shined the light on a society that was already living in a debaucherous kind of way and said, no, that is wrong. Ask yourself the question, are we being progressive or regressive these days? You see, cultures used to live the way that the modern progressives are instructing us that we should now live like. But we've already done that if we study the history of sexuality. Judaism overall also chose life. You see, that was kind of the problem with homosexuality. No life comes from that. They would say a bad meat, that's death. Good milk, that's life. Menstruation, that's death. Intercourse between a man and a woman, that's life. Gay sex, death. Married intimacy, life. It was Judaism, our Bible, that made that distinction. We continue, Judaism also promoted the family. It was the Bible that said, here's the structure that you need to have for a society that is going to be a good one. It was the Bible who said, family, that's the important part of a social fabric. Not living crazy like the rest of the world is. It is family. And it was really based in the Bible, specifically Genesis 2. Now, what about the consequences of homosexuality? Dennis Prager rightly points out, and you don't really have to be much of a historian to say, culture wasn't that good. Why? Because when men are able to act in an unbridled way, we tend to get kind of preoccupied with it, and we will, and culture suffers. Furthermore, women, see that really low down there? Women, they suffer. Women get pushed to the fringes of society and family. Why? We're stronger, they're weaker. If we don't need them for that pleasurable act, what do we need them for? That's what society would say. We need them for breeding and for doing chores around the house. And so without the Bible, homosexuality and undefined sexuality as the active and passive participants, it relegated women to a lower role. This is just flat out provable. It is Judaism, and more than that, Christianity, who elevated women in society. Why? Well, because the teachings of our New Testament scriptures, and because sexuality was defined, and women were brought into this partnership, this relationship of a married institution. And finally, when you've got homosexuality being accepted by society, you know what you've got? More homosexuality. The historic church, the present historic church argument is we don't believe, we could be, but we just typically don't believe that homosexuality is nature. We would say it's nurtured. In other words, you weren't born that way, Lady Gaga. Instead, it just kind of happened. Well, okay, that could be. But if that is the case, get ready, Christian, because if society now says that it's okay, the curb of shame will be lifted and there will be more people practicing homosexuality because of a lack of shame.
$10 says he's not dressed yet.
Finally!
You're dressed!
No, better than that. Slang the Dragon. You can finally download the thing. So if you struggle with porn, instead of having to order the thing, you can download it like everything else we do. Drive-by marriage, drive-by parenting, Terrified. Finally, Slang the Dragon. Downloadable. Sweet. Yeah!
Come on, seriously, it's downloadable. You can't even steal it.